The first comments from Steve Bannon, former Trump advisor, a very stalwart supporter of the former president. Stephen K. Bannon out with comments moments ago, just as a judge orders him to jail for July 1st. So he might be celebrating the 4th of July from a prison cell. I have a feeling he'll work that angle somehow. We're going to get into that. Plus, did Biden just fall asleep? Was that like a snooze fest? At the 90th anniversary of D-Day. We're going to get into that. I'll show you the footage. We got the short list here for the VP. I mean, the really short list, because I have some very special intel that I want to share with you. It's down to 7, but I think I got it narrowed down to 2. We'll go through those names. Who will be the vice president for Donald Trump? And 50 Cent had kind of a surprising view of things when he was asked about a very key demographic. We'll talk all about that. Welcome to the program, everyone. You know what? I think NVIDIA is still on fire. We're going to talk about this a little bit later on my other show, on my other channel after this show. So make sure you go over and you subscribe to @76Research. 76, you get it? 1776 was an important year. @76Research. It's on YouTube. And that is my company that I started with my dear friend Rob Horton, longtime stock picker. And we just have some great ideas for you. There's model portfolios there. I'm telling you should check it out. 10 to 15 stocks in each one of them. Go to 76research.com. Sign up for this. It's important. You know what? It's Thursday. I'm telling you, you need this information going into your weekend, especially as we look at a market that, even in the face of everything, right, is still holding up. It's because it's NVIDIA, like literally holding up the whole S&P. Anyway, lots of good ways to play it. Rob and I have a lot of ideas, so stay tuned for that live show. Go to 76research.com and sign up. Well, Steve Bannon, I like him, all right? I like him. I'm just going to say that. I've always thought he was really, really spot on. The way he talked about China. I remember watching a 60 Minutes interview with him years ago, I mean, maybe back in 2016 or so. And I remember texting him a message and saying, you know what, Steve, that was fantastic. If only the reporter had actually asked you a few more questions about China. Of course, the 60 Minutes reporter probably really doesn't understand trade with China, in all fairness, right? So they didn't quite go there. But Steve has a lot of very interesting and very important views on a lot of different things. But I'll tell you, he's in a heck of a lot of trouble, ladies and gentlemen, and they are sending him to jail. The judge just ordered it today, July 1st. So he's just got a few weeks as we look here. That deadline is looming. And he came out with some comments. Let me tell you, he's coming out swinging in typical Steve Bannon fashion. He's not letting this get him down. If he has to be a political prisoner, he says, so be it. He will take this all the way to the Supreme Court. I will tell you this, it's very interesting. In the last decade and a half, say the last 15 years, Drew and I were doing some research. Who are the people that have defied subpoenas? Well, Steve Bannon's one of them. Eric Holder's another. Lois Lerner is another. They didn't go to jail. No. You see, Eric Holder and Lois Lerner were forgiven by the DOJ, which chose not to prosecute. Obama's DOJ said, no, we're not going to go there. I mean, Eric Holder was running it at the time, right? But Steve Bannon, pack your bags. You're going to the slammer, says the Biden Justice Department. Let's listen to Bannon as he got this news just moments ago. Here we go.
Okay, thanks. I've got great lawyers, and we're going to go all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to, but I want to say something specifically about the Justice Department. Merrick Garland, Lisa Monaco, the entire Justice Department, they're not going to shut up Trump. They're not going to shut up Navarro. They're not going to shut up Bannon, and they're certainly not going to shut up MAGA. If you look right here, you reporters, in the 2.5 or 3 years we've been here, look at the rise of MAGA, look at the rise of Donald Trump. If the election was held today, according to Harry Enton over at CNN, President Trump would win in a landslide. All of this, besides the major legal issues that have to be addressed, all of this is about one thing. This is about shutting down the MAGA movement, shutting down grassroots conservatives, shutting down President Trump. Not only are we winning, we are going to prevail, and every number and every poll shows that. There's nothing that can shut me up and nothing that will shut me up. There's not a prison built or a jail built that will ever shut me up. all victory to MAGA. We're going to win this. We're going to win at the Supreme Court. And more importantly, we're going to win on November 5th in an amazing landslide with the Senate, the House, and also Donald J. Trump back as President of the United States. Thank you very much.
Wow. So kind of a bit of a stump speech there, trying to rally the troops effectively. But you know what? If you think about some of his predecessors, right? People in high positions of power that were actually charged with some pretty bad stuff. I mean, you had Lois Lerner, right? Who was allegedly going after Tea Party folks. The IRS was targeting conservatives. And Lois Lerner wouldn't testify before Congress. She absolutely refused to. So, of course, she was held in contempt. But guess what? The Justice Department, run by Obama at the time, is like, nope, we're not doing that. No way. Like, you know, and they threw it out. Eric Holder, same thing. You know, that was the Fast and Furious thing. And he was brought in and he was held in contempt because he wouldn't testify. And so they held him in contempt. And then his DOJ said, we're not going to worry about it. You know what? They threw it out. So they didn't prosecute. They didn't choose to move forward. But here with Bannon, they're moving forward. Now, let me say, like, all things being equal, I kind of would have liked him to have testified and given him a piece of his mind, shall we say. And I do think that Fani Willis needs to testify and Mayorkas needs to testify. And when you're subpoenaed, you should testify. But there is a double standard because there's plenty of people on the left that choose not to, and they get away with it. But why is it that Navarro, why is it that Bannon get hit with actual jail time? Think about that. Peter Navarro, whom I've known probably my whole career. I mean, he was really, really, really deep in the weeds on China 20 years ago. I used to interview him on CNBC. He was a lefty back then, actually, quite a liberal. At UC Berkeley, a professor, and he would go on and on and on about how we had to be careful of China. And everybody was like, really? You know, you're kind of overdoing it. Well, no, he was onto something way back when. And now the guy's in jail. This is not who we should be, okay? We shouldn't be having political prisoners in the United States of America. That just gives more fodder to the whole banana republic thing. You send Steve Bannon to jail? He's going to play that up. He's going to be a martyr. He's got a huge following. He's a dynamic, charismatic guy with a very, very big following, a leader, if you would, in this whole MAGA movement. And you're going to have a lot of people that are really pretty ticked off. I mean, between that and the mugshot of Donald Trump and the 91 indictments against him, 4 criminal indictments, all of these charges, the 34 guilty counts, come on. Like, get over it. Even Donald Trump is actually out saying, you know what, if he gets in, he actually backed off some of the rhetoric in a recent interview, kind of backed off it and said, you know what, it's terrible. Like, this stuff has to stop. You know what? It has to stop, guys. It has to stop. How do we make it stop? I think you need to use the law and take it all the way, as Steve Bannon said, to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. You need real people, real intellects, real scholars, real folks that understand the Constitution of this country to take a look at this stuff, because it's running wild, totally wild with one side. And they're sitting there saying, no, it's the other side. Oh my gosh, did we have to hear about it today over and over and over again? The future of democracy, the future of the United States, it all hangs in balance. You know, gosh darn it, if that MAGA movement gets a hold of anything, if Donald Trump gets into office again, it's game over, etc. You know the drill. I mean, I've played it for you 1,000 times, but we had to hear it today, again, on, of course, the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the operation at Normandy, where you had 150,000 Allied soldiers storm the beaches there at Normandy. June 6, 1944. What a generation, right? Really and truly, the greatest generation that understood the importance of sacrifice for your country, that understood the importance of freedom. And today, the President of the United States went over to France, and granted, he's 81 and he's slipping. Wall Street Journal just told us that, right? 45 people they interviewed on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, the other day. He's slipping. And we saw evidence of that today. Now, some of it's been exaggerated, in fairness. And there's a clip circulating around on the internet that's not entirely true. I'm going to show you the true one. But let's at least take a little look at this, because I don't know. Is it me? Is it me? Or is he falling asleep? I get it. It's in French. It's in French. You know? So he doesn't speak the language. He's probably exhausted from the time change, 81 years old and all. He starts nodding off. Here we go.
De guerre. Certains de ces...
And the camera cuts away just in time. But if you look at that, Drew was kind enough to do like a freeze frame there. We're watching it in slow motion. If you look at that, I see Jill kind of creeping closer and closer and closer to him. Do you see that? She's about to say, hey, hon, wake up. Wake up. You know, sunny day. They're speaking French. The camera cuts away to the beautiful shot of the flag. Convenient. Well, there was another one where, was he scratching his head, Drew? In that one, we got a few, because I got to show you yeah, take a look at this. Distracted? I mean, you know, Trudeau, he's like a spring chicken out there. Clapping, everybody's clapping. You like how that one cuts away too. The news channel just dropped the feed at that point. Let's watch. So everybody's clapping. Again, Jill seems a little worried. Dr. Jill's like, I could have used that actual medical degree, right? She's like, oh, honey, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Everybody's clapping and you seem to be scratching your head. And then there was this moment. So this is the one that's a little bit of a misnomer, because it got cut in a different way. You know, it's important in these days, right? Like, it's very important to understand what's in the news that's real and what's not. And one of the clips that made the rounds this morning was of Joe Biden seeming as though he needed to sit, but not being able to. But here's the truth. In fairness to Joe, he did need to sit. Everybody needed to sit. There was a chair there. It doesn't look like there is, but there was a chair. And it was only that he was ahead of the curve, ahead of the schedule. It's like he knew what to do next and no one else did. It's kind of a funny thing to see. If Drew has it, let's take a quick look. Can we check that out? Okay, he's working on it. He's working on it, I think. Yes. All right. You keep working on it, Drew. We'll show everybody that. But it's kind of an interesting moment. But in fairness, it's not entirely correct. So we're going to show you the correct clip, which you need to see. Other stuff going on right now. You know, again, it's a big day, big anniversary, obviously. I think one of the things that people are very, very focused on in this moment is who is going to be the vice president of the United States of America. Who might it be? There are 7 names that are being discussed. We'll go through the 7, but I actually have it down to, I think, about 2 or 3. Probably 2. Let's take a look. I think we've got Bret Baier talking with the Fox reporter, my former colleague, actually, talking with the former president about who he might pick. And Donald Trump told him months ago, you know what? I know who it is. I know who it is. Let's listen.
Who would be in the running for vice president?
Well, I can't tell you that, really. I mean, I know who it's going to be.
Give us a hint.
We'll do another show sometime.
Well, what about any of the people who you've run against? Would you be open to mending fences with any of them?
I will. I've already started like Christie better.
So he knows. And then Bret decided to go back at him in this little one-on-one like a week later and said, okay, so you know who it is. Can you give us a hint? And this was actually a really important hint. I want you to hear this. And I'm going to explain a little bit more on this. But listen to what he says here, because this is really important. And it helps color and affect who ultimately is going to get the gig. Watch.
You said in our town hall that you had an idea, or you might have already decided about your VP pick. When do you think you're going to make that?
Well, it's never really had that much of an effect on an election, which is an amazing thing. Both election and primary, it's never really had much of an effect. I may or may not release something over the next couple of months. There's no rush to that. It won't have any impact at all. The person that I think I like is a very good person, pretty standard. I think people won't be that surprised. But I would say there's probably a 25% chance it would be that person.
Is Senator Tim Scott on the list now?
No, he's a great guy. You know, he endorsed me. There's an example. Nikki comes from South Carolina. Tim Scott is from South Carolina. But if you look, the governor, great governor, another senator, Lindsey, we happen to like Lindsey. But Henry McMaster knows her very well. He endorsed me. It's very hard for a governor to endorse somebody when you have, Henry McMaster was the lieutenant governor under her, and he endorsed me, and he's going to be here tonight. In 15 minutes, you're going to be watching him speak. I'm going to introduce him. He's a great guy. He's done a great job. So everybody, almost everybody in South Carolina has endorsed me. What is that?
Everyone in South Carolina has addressed me. So, Nikki, take that. I have a feeling it's not going to be Nikki. Anyway, there's 7 people on the list. We can go through some of the names. They are some that you might expect, of course. Look, you've got Byron Donalds, right? We love Byron. We love Byron on this show. And I'm going to share some clips with you of Byron a little bit later because he's under fire for some stuff that is just a non-event. But he's so strong. He's out there pushing back and saying what needs to be said. And I think he has a huge, huge future. So Byron is one of the people that is being vetted. The other person would be someone that you probably have never heard of. This would be the governor of, I'm like North Dakota, South Dakota, I believe it's North Dakota. Okay. So it's Doug Burgum, and he's a businessman. He is a Trump supporter. He's the governor out there. And there's a real shot. There's a lot of people within the campaign, close to the campaign, that think it will be Doug. Now, if you listened to what the former president just told Brett, he said it's going to be someone who doesn't really, it's not going to be like a shocker. It's not going to be someone who commands a ton of attention. His view on this is that there's one star, right? You go one star and one star only, and that is the president. It's why I said back in 2016, he's going to pick Pence. Pence is the guy because Pence was sort of like, a little bit shorter than him, kind of like a little, not big personality, a little personality, dare I say, all those things that I think had appeal to Trump at the time and, came from a state that was indeed very helpful. So there was a lot of reason for him to go with Pence. So Doug could be a version, if you would, of Pence in this sort of time. I mean, I like J.D. Vance. You guys know that. J.D. Vance, I think, brings a certain je ne sais quoi in that he's got the personality to kind of light up a room, and he can help with the Midwest. Now, you don't want tons and tons of personality. I get it. It's Trump. It's why Tucker is not going to be there. It's why you're not going to have Vivek Ramaswamy as much as you guys like him. But J.D. Vance, I think, could be very, very real. And he is being vetted right now. Some other interesting names that you might not have expected. Tom Cotton is on the list, and he's being vetted as we speak. So that's somewhat interesting. And I think, Drew, we have some betting odds, right? Some new betting odds that have come in. So this is the market, if you would, for who's going to be the vice president, who is going to be the president. And, it's always fun to watch this stuff because when people put money on the line, it kind of has a little bit more of a little bit more of a backing to it. Drew, if you have those betting odds, let's show them right now to people because it's interesting in terms of understanding what the market wants. Look, I think Christie's out. I think Elise Stefanik, she's back in. Elise Stefanik, those of you that like the representative from New York, remember this is the woman that took down the president of Harvard University, got her effectively outed, right? She's now just a professor. She still kept a job somehow. I guess tenure really matters. But she's no longer Claudine Gay, someone I went to high school with, actually. She was much older. But Claudine Gay is no longer at Harvard University, thanks to none other than Representative Elise Stefanik. So Elise Stefanik is on the list right now. Elise Stefanik, ladies and gentlemen. So as we look at these names, as we look at these people here, it's kind of interesting. it's not the flashy sort of, people were talking, oh, could it be Tucker Carlson? And I said all along, you know what? It's not going to be Tucker Carlson. I can tell you it's not going to be Tucker Carlson because I know as a television person, you know what? There's only one primetime star. And for Tucker, that's Tucker. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. All right? He's the star. And for Donald Trump, it's Donald Trump. He's the star. So you're not going to get these massive, big personalities. Stefanik is in there. Ben Carson, ladies and gentlemen, he's another one that's being vetted. And Tim Scott. But this is what I want to tell you. You don't have people that are going to just say, okay, we're going to go with this one or that one just because they fit a certain demographic. That's not actually the way Trump operates. No. If Tim Scott gets it, it's not because he's black. It's because Donald Trump thinks this is the guy that's going to help deliver me to the finish line. If Ben Carson gets it, it's because this is who he wants to work with. Oddly, Haley's in there. I don't believe she's being vetted. And I think she's probably already been vetted. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, the same with Tom Cotton, right? You don't get that far in politics without having a certain amount of vetting going on. But Byron Donalds is being vetted. And Stefanik's being vetted. Tom Cotton, J.D. Vance, Doug, Byron. Am I missing anyone? Am I missing anyone here? I don't think it's going to be Nikki. I'm just saying, there's no way after everything that's happened. I mean, never Nikki is an expression now for a reason. The president has been very clear that he's willing to kind of open things up. I can also tell you it's not going to be Ron DeSantis. It's just not. It's just not going to be. I mean, these are the betting odds. Take a look. Again, looking at these right now, some people are still in the viewpoint that it's going to be Haley. So I hate to burst your bubble. It's not going to be Nikki Haley. And it's probably not going to be Elise Stefanik. The reason I don't think it's going to be Elise Stefanik is she's very young. And while she's very accomplished, I don't think he's going to see her as really VP material. Again, as I look at this list, I think J.D. Vance, they don't have Doug on here. Doug is way up there, though, guys. He's being vetted as we speak. So Byron, Doug, J.D., Tom Cotton, Ben Carson, Stefanik. That's your 7, okay? So the betting odds, they need to rework their markets there. Actually, that's 6. 6. So maybe you could throw Nikki in there as a 7th, possibly Tulsi. I don't think, though. I actually think that they're long shots. I think if you really want to boil this down here, I'm going to tell you the top 3 names. Tom Cotton is probably up there, J.D. Vance, and Doug. I'm going to tell you why Byron's not going to be as high as someone like him. And I'm sorry, because I know you all love Byron. I love Byron too. He comes on the show. Drew is very good friends with him, actually. He's awesome. He's just awesome. He understands the economy. Imagine that. Somebody in Congress. He blew me away. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think you're the first representative that I ever spoke to that actually understands how the Federal Reserve works. But he's a former financial advisor. So Byron's really talented. But here's the deal. He comes from Florida. Ann Coulter had a big piece on this just about 2 weeks ago in Breitbart. And she was looking at the law, and the way the law stands, there's an amendment in the Constitution that actually will not provide for this. You cannot have 2 people from the exact same state, because then you would be forfeiting all of those votes. And Trump's not going to forfeit Florida. So he's from Florida. He can't actually bring someone in from Florida. But I suspect they're vetting Byron anyway, because he might be there for another position. Right? He could still have a very big position in the next administration. And I think that Donald Trump would want him on his side. What am I saying? The 7th is probably, you know who it is? It's Scott. It's Tim Scott. I'm seeing in your commentary, you're getting nervous. And the idea of Nikki is making you nervous. I know. So Byron, Doug, J.D., Tom Cotton, Ben Carson, Elise Stefanik, and Tim Scott. So there you go. Those are the 7 that are being vetted in this moment in time, according to my intel. So again, according to my intel, the ones you want to sort of focus on are JD, possibly Tom Cotton, and Doug. What do you think? of those three? Any preferences, any which way or another? Leave me a comment. If you're watching this live, you can join the chat. I'm looking at these in real time, or just send me a message there below. Reminder, subscribe. It's really, really important. Subscribe, hit the bell, like, share, all that good stuff. But we're getting into a range now where he's going to have to pick someone pretty quickly. And I think that you'll be happy. Let me just say that. I don't think you'll be disappointed with his pick. So that's the good news. A lot of other things to get to today. We also have some of that video that I told you about earlier. You guys, I see. Oh, I got a super chat. Thanks. Who's that from? We were getting some super chats here on this Thursday afternoon, I think from Charlie. Anyway, let's take a look at some of these messages. Yes. Oh, you're so kind. Thank you, Charlie. I'm glad that I can be here bringing you the news every day. It's important to me as well. Again, we get a lot of people tuning in, thousands right now. So thank you for that in real time. Leave a comment, leave a message. We so appreciate you guys being here. It's a difficult time. I mean, for goodness sakes, sending people to jail. Peter Navarro's already there. Steve Bannon's there. I mean, it may be the president of the United States, former president of the United States, who's going to be running from jail. James Comey tried to give us a description the other day on CNN. He said, well, he'll get his double wide and he'll basically be able to function there and he'll have Secret Service, etc. Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine? It's Donald Trump versus the 81-year-old that's fallen asleep in press conferences, that's fallen asleep on the 90th anniversary of D-Day. We do have that video that's making the rounds, guys. It's making the rounds. It's actually not correct. So I'm just going to put that out there. But it doesn't change the fact that he still was not really with the game. He's like really anxious to sit down. Everybody else is still standing, lots of pomp and circumstance, and he's looking for his chair. Now, the video that you see circulating on Twitter, etc., doesn't actually show the final moment when everybody sits. And so you can see how it looks like, oh my gosh. I mean, when I first saw this, I was like, oh my gosh, no, poor guy. Let's take a look. This is the full version, the whole thing. Okay, so he's there. He's looking a little confused. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you. Everybody go subscribe on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. We're there and you can listen to me like you do all your favorite podcasters. But anyway, he does finally sit down. You see that? But the way it got clipped earlier today, he was just looking around and looking for the chair. It didn't even look like there was a chair there. And so it's important that you understand the context of it all. It doesn't necessarily change what we worry about, shall we say, with Mr. Biden, right? Because he's struggling. I mean, we have only to look at the testimony from Robert Hur to know that. After all, he didn't prosecute him because, he would just be seen as too sympathetic, a forgetful old man, right? Prosecuting Trump, they're not going after Biden because he's just a sad, pathetic old man who can't seem to remember anything. We get it. I mean, we were watching a press conference just the other day. This was moments before the State of the Union. And he looked like he didn't know what day it was. I showed you guys this, and so many of you made a really interesting point. You were like, it was too much incoming. Too many people asking him questions at once. I get it. I don't like that either, right? But this is a weird reaction. Take a peek.
I have a lot of questions. I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
What's your message for Super Tuesday voters? Everyone please move this way. Super Tuesday tonight, do you have a message for voters? Thanks, come on.
He looks as though he's having a moment, almost as though he might faint or that he has some nausea. He doesn't know where he is, it seems, when I look at this. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But that's not a good moment. And again, he may have been overwhelmed. Everybody was asking a question at once. But I'm sorry, you are the president of the United States, buddy. So that means you can't fall asleep when they start speaking French on the anniversary of Normandy. Right? He did. I mean, look at this. Tell me, what do you think? Is he asleep or is he asleep? I think he looks like he's trying to take a little cat nap. Granted, it's French. But just as you see Jill leaning in and they cut away to the flag, he looks like he's sleeping. Really? All right. So we've got a president who's clearly up against it in more ways than one. So it's important that the competitor, Donald Trump, pick a really good VP and somebody who's going to help deliver those Midwestern states. He's got Ohio, but let's get Pennsylvania. Let's get Michigan. Let's get Wisconsin. Let's get Minnesota. Minnesota is suddenly in play in ways that they never thought before. I mean, this could be a real monumental shift in the nation. And this is what they so fear. You understand? I mean, this is why they want to throw him in jail. Well, breaking right now, Aileen Cannon has put a little wrench in that plan to throw Donald Trump in jail, to go after him as Jack Smith is trying to do on these federal charges. Take a look. Ooh, the lefty media is really mad about this. Here's the headline coming to us out of NBC. Aileen Cannon makes procedural moves that help Donald Trump again. As he faces July sentencing in New York, the presumptive GOP nominee got good news in his other 3 criminal cases this week. And the reporter writes that U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon keeps using her vast discretion over the docket to Donald Trump's benefit. She added a new dimension to that approach this week, further confirming that the former president won't face trial in Florida this year. Perhaps more importantly, he writes, the Trump appointee's latest maneuvers call into even more significant question how she'd handle any trial that happens in the classified documents case if one ever happens now. If one ever happens now. Right? So the latest moves, he writes, stem from a claim that has nothing to do with the charges themselves. The far-fetched defense argument that special counsel Jack Smith's appointment and funding are unlawful. Well, hang on, wait a second. Because if Jack Smith's funding and appointment are unlawful, then why would you be going forward with all of these cases, right? Like, wouldn't that actually stop everything? So just common sense would tell you, if you don't have that worked out, you can't move forward with the other stuff. It's like what's happened down in Georgia, right? Fani Willis getting some bad news. It looks like October 4th is the big day for Fani because the appeals court has just said we're going to move forward with this. Now, it may not be resolved before the election, and therefore they can't move forward with everything they'd like to do to Donald Trump down in Fulton County, Georgia. But in other words, you've got to say, wait a second, should Fani have ever even had this gig to begin with? If Fani was doing things that Fani shouldn't have been doing, you get my drift, right? Well, the same thing with Jack Smith. If Jack Smith was unlawfully appointed, unlawfully funded, then how can you move forward with those cases? It's the cart before the horse, right? And they get mad. I mean, that is, I believe, not a commentary piece. I believe that is a straightforward news piece on NBC News, and they're not hiding it. Normally, like, there's a big thing, like it says commentary. Like, by the way, this is a commentary show. It is my opinion. I try to make sure we are as accurate as possible. That's why I did you the favor on the Normandy stuff. I try, right? And you're going to hear all sides as much as possible. But you're also going to hear my point of view. And you know that. You know what you're getting. But what's troubling, and I'll tell you, this is troubling when you think about AI and where everything's going, when they start to present opinion as fact, and only one side is in charge. Well, what happens to our future? What happens to our history? You've already seen it, for goodness sakes, all the goofs that AI has had. In fact, we were poking around on the internet just before the show, looking at who in recent history had defined a subpoena and wound up in jail or wound up just, getting off the hook. And we got 3 names: Eric Holder, Lois Lerner, and Steve Bannon. And it's like Peter Navarro didn't even exist. It's like, wait a second, guys. He defied it, and he actually wound up in jail, but somehow that didn't make its way to ChatGPT. So I'm only saying you got to have some concerns about what they're doing right now and how they're manipulating and affecting history. Think of what just happened to Byron Donalds. Now, Byron, as you know, is a U.S. representative in Congress, Republican from Florida, from the Naples-Fort Myers area. He's a former financial planner, which is one of the reasons that you absolutely, positively, everyone should listen and pay attention to what he says, in that he's one of the few people in Congress that actually understands how financial markets work. And so that's really important. Anyway, Byron was caught up in something recently. He was making some comments at a sort of small gathering, and he talked about the challenges in the Black community and he made some comment that really got badly misinterpreted. We're going to get to that in a minute. We have some breaking news that we want to get to you right now. Drew is pinging me in real time, and it has to do with Jack Smith and Aileen Cannon, I believe. Okay, Drew, I have not seen this sound, so I'm just going to let you run with it, buddy. And we're gonna watch this, the viewer and I, in real time together. Again, this is just coming in, and this is related, I believe, to Jack Smith. Let's take a peek. All right, this is a fun Thursday. Not yet. Okay, Drew's leading us on. That's what you call a tease in the television business. We're going to get it for you momentarily, but this has something to do with Jack Smith, Aileen Cannon, I believe. You know, Aileen, the judge there in Florida, they want to go after Donald Trump, put him away for hanging on to some documents. Everybody else apparently used to do it. I mean, you had Pence doing it. You had Joe Biden keeping documents in his garage next to the Corvette. So there's a few things out there that are getting overlooked. I mean, literally overlooked, to the point where they said what he did was illegal. That is, having the documents in the garage next to the Corvette, Joe Biden, but they're not going to prosecute. We've got some new sound coming into us related to the Jack Smith case. Let's listen in.
Was Jack Smith nominated by President Biden or confirmed by the U.S. Senate?
You're asking me about a case, again, motions filed.
This is a simple question.
No, I'm not.
Was Jack Smith nominated by President Biden?
No, he was not.
Was he confirmed by the Senate?
No, he was not.
When was the special counsel statute passed?
There is no special counsel statute. There was an independent counsel statute that was expired.
So it expired. So what gives you the authority to appoint a special counsel? You've created an office in the U.S. government that does not exist without authorization from Congress.
Okay, so what the suggestion here is that potentially Jack Smith is holding this position perhaps illegally. That's in fact what is being suggested. So Merrick Garland not really being able to say that, in fact, the office was created with the authorization of Congress. It was created without the authorization of Congress, which would, in fact, be unconstitutional. So when you go back to this and you look at what's going on with Aileen Cannon right now, this is pretty relevant, okay? So if they created something specifically just for the intention of going after Trump, and they did so without the authorization from Congress and without the funding from Congress, then you've got a problem. So when this particular reporter is trying to say that this is all ridiculous and that it's a far-fetched thing, in terms of the defense, to say that special counsel Jack Smith's appointment and funding are unlawful, you get back to what you just saw there from Merrick Garland, in which it seems as though they had absolutely no authority to put Jack Smith in the position that he's in, nor could they have paid him because it was not approved for any kind of funding. So that's a pretty big deal. Again, just getting into this warfare thing. You know, guys, you cannot go this far. They're grasping to do things that are not entirely legal. And then people get in their way, like, oh, that darn judge down in Florida, Aileen Cannon, or Marianne, remember her, that said, gee, I don't think I can sign off on this. What they were trying to slip by with Hunter Biden. They wanted to just tuck it in there in fine print that you could never go after him for any of the concerns about his foreign lobbying or his tax evasion if he cut a deal on the gun thing, the gun charges. I mean, wow. So that's why Hunter Biden is back in the hot seat on Capitol Hill. listen, this is a government gone wild, as you could say, really gone wild. And someone's got to rein it in, and they have to be within the scope of the law. They have to be doing things fairly. They have to be doing things legally. All right, turning to Byron Donalds. Did you see this little scuttlebutt that came out? So Byron was doing a little political event, and he said a few things that, in my estimation, kind of made a lot of sense. But before I show it to you, let me first show you the headlines he got. Really, really negative headlines for Byron Donalds. You see, they're very fearful of him on the left. Oh my gosh, what are they going to do if Byron is the vice presidential pick? This is the guy that's in the vetting process for Donald Trump, and they don't like it, right? So they're going to attack him no matter what. Well, Byron Donalds got all kinds of negative press where they were accusing him of feeling nostalgic about the Jim Crow era. That was one of them. I mean, and then I think, Drew, do you have a few? We can show from the Hill what they were saying. It was really kind of sketchy the way they were going about this. You had one headline here saying, in fact, yeah, there's the nostalgia point. Byron Donalds feeling nostalgia for the Jim Crow era when the black family was together. Then you have Byron Donalds' outlandish, outrageous, and out-of-pocket Representative Jeffries roasts Representative Donalds over Jim Crow comments. The New York Times writes, Byron Donalds, Trump VP contender, suggests Jim Crow era had an upside. Then you have NBC News. Trump surrogate Byron Donalds harkens back to Jim Crow era when the black family was together. Donalds suggests black families were stronger during Jim Crow era. I mean, this is something else. This is something else. This is what I call a coordinated attack. Look, I've been on the receiving end of one of these things. It's not pretty because they start putting words in your mouth. They accuse you of saying things that you never said. Well, what I love about Byron is he's fighting back. He is, and we're going to get to that in a second. But before, look at what he said. You saw the headlines, right? I read them to you. See how they're interpreting what he said. Let's go to the actual clip of him speaking to possible voters. Take a peek.
I grew up with my mom. My dad and my mom, things didn't work out. As an adult, I look at my father and I say, bro, I don't know what happened, but you my father and I love you. Wow. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. Wow. But I'm going to tell you this. Growing up, the one thing I knew I wanted to do, and this is not about my father, this is about what I wanted to do, is I wanted to be a father to myself. Wow. And so one of the things that's actually happening in our culture, which you're now starting to see in our politics, is the reinvigoration of black families with younger black men and black women. And that is also helping to breed the revival of a black middle class in America. You see, during Jim Crow, the black family was together. That's right. During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative, because black people always have been conservative-minded, but more black people voted conservatively. And then H.E.W., Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened in America the last 10 years, and I say it because it's my contemporaries as well as his contemporaries, you're starting to see more black people be married in homes, raising kids. It's when you home with your wife raising your kids, and then you look at the world, you're saying, now wait a minute, time out. This does not look right. How can I get something to my kids? It goes back to the conversation of generational wealth. Not just having a job, generational wealth.
So, again, remember the headlines. They're trying to say, basically, Byron Donalds is going to take you back to the Jim Crow era. He's reminiscing about the Jim Crow era. That's actually not at all what he was saying. And even CNN, the reporter there who interviewed him recently kind of admitted that. She went and looked at the tape and was like, oh, gee, that's not really what you were saying. She had him on the show to talk about it. Let's take a peek.
Now, we should note that many Democrats who jumped on Donalds today claimed that he said that blacks were, quote, better off. As you heard there, he didn't use those exact words in the clip, but the congressman joins me now to talk about that. Congressman, thank you for being here. I want to just focus on really the substance of what you were saying or trying to say in that clip. What did you mean by black families were more together during Jim Crow?
Frankly, what that is about the empirical fact that before the Great Society, before Lyndon Johnson's policies, there was more black families united. The marriage rate in Black America was significantly higher before the Great Society. The period of time that coincides with that, obviously, is Jim Crow era. And then after the Great Society, the marriage rate in the black community plummeted significantly. The Great Society is a part of that reason, not completely, but it's definitely a part of that. And what you're seeing right now in America is a reformation of black families in America. That's a good thing, not only for the black community and for black families, but it's also a good thing for the country.
So what was the point of tying together the black family and Jim Crow specifically? I mean, Jim Crow, as you know, was a period of racial segregation, of racial terror. Why would you make that connection?
All I was doing was referring to the time periods when you talk about the historical timelines in America and coinciding with black families and what the marriage rate in black families are. The overarching point is obviously talking about what polling shows today, that about 20-25% of the black vote, depending on what poll you're looking at, is leaning towards supporting Republicans and supporting President Trump. The corollary to that is that when you're in a family unit, husband and wife, living together, working together, thriving together, you're raising your kids, your thought process is now talking about building generational wealth. What am I leaving to my children? What kind of communities do I want my children to come up in? What are the educational opportunities? What's going on with the economy? How does, and then to a broader level, how does foreign policy and all these other public policy issues flow into that? And so when you compare the terrible agenda of Joe Biden and what that's done to families in America, coinciding with the fact that you are seeing a reformation of black families.
So in other words, he's talking above her head right now. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, the Democrats have done nothing to help black America. Really, from an economic perspective, I mean, they've sort of decimated the family. You got Black Lives Matter saying our mission is to destroy the nuclear family. It was literally part of their original mandate. What the heck? You need families, for goodness sakes. I know, I got 3 kids. It's not easy, right? You need a mother and a father. Thank you very much. You need all the help you can get. Why would you destroy the nuclear family, for goodness sakes? What a crazy thing to say. But hey, if you can make people more dependent on you, if you can make people more dependent on Uncle Sam and Uncle Joe, then you score more votes. You just keep them down on the farm, right? Just give them enough, and keep them hungry. Tell them they are the victim and they can't get anywhere without you doing their bidding. And that's what you're seeing right now. This is the playbook straight out of Obama. I mean, my gosh, how devastating for America to think that, we had come so far. And I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist. Believe me, I know that there's bad pockets out there, and that stuff still happens. Okay, I'm not being Pollyanna here, but capitalism and a meritocracy are worth something, and there's something that are very special about the United States of America in that we are a capitalist society. We are a meritocracy, or at least we used to be until all this nonsense started coming along. And it's only in a meritocracy, in a true capitalist society, that you really can be colorblind. Of course, you're not allowed to be colorblind right now. No. You have to actually see color. That's very important to the left right now, that you see color, as opposed to, you think about MLK Jr. And I have a dream that, one day you won't just see someone for the color of their skin, but you see them beyond that. And yet we're regressing because apparently politically that didn't work, right? They've decided to double down on this race issue, and it has not helped Black Americans. I really do believe America is a phenomenal place, and it's the reason why you have people stampeding at the border trying to get here, okay? They want to come here because they want a chance at something better. You look at various immigrant groups. I mean, Indian Americans, Asian Americans, Nigerians, one of the most successful immigrants groups in America. I mean, the truth is, we're not what they are trying to make us sound like. But Byron has a very vital point when he talks about how important it is to focus on family and the economy. These are sort of the nuts and bolts of everything, right? You got to have stability in the family. You got to have stability financially. And that stability is what allows you to do so much more. He's also made the point, because Joe Biden likes to say, oh, you know what? Wages have gone up under me. Black Americans have never done so well except under me. And it's like, no, buddy. In fact, Black America has actually fallen. When you look at real wages, I love this chart. I'm going to show it to you again because this is real wages. This is everybody, not just Black America, white America, everybody. Real wages under Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. And what you see, we can throw in Bush there and we can throw in Obama as well. There was a decline under Bush. We gained under Obama. We gained much more under Donald Trump. And we've been losing big time. People have less money now than they did in the past. We also have not just a bar chart, but I think we have like a little graphic chart, right? A line graph as well, Drew. We can show them this because it's crazy. I mean, we're not even back to the median yet, everyone. If it feels uncomfortable in America right now, if your inflation feels uncomfortable, it's because it is. It is. It absolutely is. Here we go. Drew's going to pull this one for you. I love this chart because this shows you right here that Donald Trump grew incomes in ways that, you know what, we just hadn't seen in 50 years. Whereas Biden, look at that. You're not even back to the mean. This is median income. This is adjusted for inflation. This is why it's so important right now to think about your finances, to think about your investing. I encourage you to go to my financial research company that I co-founded with the brilliant stock picker, Rob Horton, over 20 years picking stocks, fund manager extraordinaire, 76research.com. We have model portfolios there for you. We're not managing your money. We're telling you the stocks that we would be investing in right now. This is what Rob has done his entire career. My entire career, I've been spotting macro trends, right? You know, you can see which way the wind is blowing from this corner of the room, shall we say. And this is what you're getting there. 76research.com. Go click on the model portfolios. Look at the 10 to 15 stocks. He actually just made a big change. I don't know if we've announced this just yet. If you're around and you're in for a little bit more YouTube, I'm going to be on 76 Research. You can subscribe to the channel at 76 Research. We're going to be doing a live show there momentarily. We're going to be talking about NVIDIA. Also, we're making one shift in one of the model portfolios. I believe it's in the Income Builder portfolio. And the reason we're making this shift is because one of the stocks we recommended for you guys has just exploded. So now it's a greater percentage of your portfolio, which allows you to actually diversify into one more pick. So we're going to get into some of the methodology behind how we pick the stocks, et cetera, in the Income Builder, in the American Resilience, which is all about growth, right? Think NVIDIA, think AI, and also the inflation protection portfolio. So visit us there at 76research.com. Really, really important. And then, check out the show. So 50 cents is weighing in on the political landscape. 50 Cent has a few things to say, and he was asked who you're going to vote for. And I'll tell you, I think like the reporter was shocked when she got the response because he talks about who he thinks a very important demographic is going to be voting for and the reasons why. Take a listen. 50 Cent, otherwise known as Curtis Jackson.
Heading into another election, so have you made a decision about who you're going to support? I'm not sure how to answer that question, to be honest with you. Have you made a decision? I haven't. What do you see as the significance of African American men in this election for both of you?
I see them identifying with Trump.
Why do you say that?
Because they got RICO charges.
Oh, RICO charges. All right, so he sees black men in America identifying with Donald Trump. Because a lot of people feel like the justice system is kind of stacked against them. And the RICO charges, that's like one of the go-to moves, right? Because you can get a whole bunch of people with the RICO charges, and you get everybody tattling on everybody, and it turns into a big, giant you-know-what storm. So 50 Cent making the point that a lot of black America is identifying now with Donald Trump, which is really kind of interesting, because they want you to think that he's really a bad dude, right? Like, he's this, that, and the other. How many times do we have to hear Whoopi Goldberg tell us how bad he is and racist he is and this, that, and the other? And then it turns out that black America is actually like, wait a second, maybe we're actually going to vote for this guy. You look at the polling numbers, it's just incredible. Joe Biden, as of a couple months ago, was down 20 points with young black Americans. And I think that actually black Americans overall, and I think young black Americans specifically, happens to be his weakest point. And I would anticipate it's going to get weaker and weaker and weaker, because this particular group is looking at the 81-year-old that's falling asleep all the time saying, well, what are you doing for me? You sit there and tell me it's my problem? Like, what are you, gaslighting me, telling me, no, the economy's great? What are you thinking? How dare you suggest otherwise? When I know how much groceries cost, I know how much it costs to put gas in my tank. Like, we weren't born yesterday. You can't just spin this anymore. Guess what? There's other sources for news, including right here, right? Where I'm going to tell you what wages are adjusted for inflation. Because you actually need to know that. New York Times doesn't. I remember, I was telling a friend this, about a year ago, I was reading a New York Times article. It was outrageous. They were literally saying how great Biden was because he had increased wages by whatever the percentage amount was that they were quoting. And I'm looking at the number and I'm like, but that's not adjusted for inflation. I mean, like, how can you actually use that number? As an economics reporter, I would never use that number. You have to use the actual, it's called real wages adjusted for inflation. You don't do that. So either the New York Times can't afford a decent economics reporter, or you've got economics reporters masquerading as political reporters, or political reporters writing your economics pieces. But the reality is this: the economy is not doing well. There's a ton of inflation. You need to figure out your life accordingly in light of it, right? Because of all this inflation that Joe Biden, frankly, has brought on. I mean, he's the guy with the third stimulus check. He's the guy that was, okay, you know what, go for it, to Chuck Schumer and company when they wanted to spend trillions of dollars more. He kept our economy shut down longer than it needed to be shut down. And what happened? You got a ton of pent up demand and not enough supply, obviously. And they kept telling us it was transitory. If I had to hear that word one more time, I'm sorry. It really started. It's like a dirty word to me, transitory, for goodness sakes. I guess they thought nobody would actually understand it, so they could go with that. Please, 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 please. I mean, look, inflation is here and it's going to be here for a while. We said the ECB just cut, forgive me, yes, just cut rates today. The ECB, the European Central Bank. So that means if you're going to Europe this summer, I'll be back in Ireland. Guess what? The dollar is even stronger. Even stronger. Wow, wow, wow. So just incredible stuff to be watching right now in real time. And you know what? We can't be spun. Now, can we? Let me take a look in this moment in time and see what your commentary is as we are on a live show right here. You're watching the Trish Regan Show. Please do me the favor of subscribing, of liking, all of that good stuff right now, because it's thanks to you and thanks to your support that we are succeeding in this just insane way. I started this channel a little over a year ago, maybe like a year and a month ago. And look at this, we're at nearly 300,000. And this is no marketing, folks. This is what you call organic growth. Like, this is just all you sharing it, liking it, telling your friends, commenting. And you know what? It pays off. So thank you for everything you do. I love seeing this. I really, really do. It's really quite something. Mike Costa, welcome back to the community. Red Omega 24, long live, thank you. Long live the Irish, indeed. The Irish are pretty darn great. Don, you know, I hope that's not true, but I hear you. We're watching it. And let's see, we've got a lot of other familiar faces here. Great to have you here, Kevin, as well. And Smith, good to have you here. Tiger, Charles, everyone. You know what? It's important important. Do what you can, because we got to break through. It's important right now in light of everything that's going on. I'll tell you, there are some people that are facing quite a bit. Michael, welcome back to the show. Good to have you here on Facebook there as well. We are live on Facebook. We are live on Rumble, and we are live on YouTube. And I see all the comments coming in. So thanks for all you do. We're going to be back here live again tomorrow. Lots going on. Stay tuned. I'll see you then.